Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is your Photo News Fix. This fix is brought to you by Datacolor, where you can now save up to $100 on their Spider color management kits for a limited amount of time. Do you want a Spider X Create kit? Bam! It's yours for 80 bucks off. How about the Spider X Capture Pro? It's $100 off. But what about the Spider X Studio? Yup, it's $100 off as well. Oh, let's not forget about the Spider X Photo Kit, which is the one that I have. How much is that one off, Jared? Let me check. $100. Bam! Now, if you've been waiting to grab a kit from Datacolor, now's the time to do it. For more info and to get your discount, head on over to datacolor.com/Fro. Before we jump into this week's fix, we have a correction from last week's fix. Gord Latoit of Sony Canada PR called to let me know the video of the moose we showed was in fact not a moose. I repeat, it was not a moose, it was an elk. And for that, we're sorry.
Who cares?
First up, let's kick this week's fix off with a report that the much-loved Nikon D500 has been discontinued.
For my homies.
The D500, which was announced over 6 years ago at this point, was considered a pro-cropped sensor camera that sports and wildlife photographers absolutely loved. It sported a 20 megapixel sensor, shot 10 frames a second, captured 4K videos, had an expandable ISO up to a worthless 1.64 million, and even took XQD cards. Now, I personally owned one of these, and I can tell you from experience, it was a pro-feeling camera. Now, with that being said, I was never fully confident in the autofocus because it never felt tack sharp. It always felt a little soft to me, thus why I ended up dumping it.
Gone.
But it now looks like it's the end of the road for yet another Nikon DSLR. End of the road. It's a natural to me. I belong to you. Yeah.
I'm here for you.
Next up, if you've been wondering why there is a chip shortage for cameras and lenses, well, it's probably Sony's fault, and let me explain. Photographer Nick Didlick, who's covering the Olympics, posted some behind-the-scenes photos of Sony's On-Location Pro Service Center, where he says they have over 250 cameras and 600 lenses that Sony is prepared to loan out. So yeah, that explains the chip shortage, right? I mean, look at the endless rows of A1s, 400 2.8s, 600 f4s, and everything else in between. It's kind of insane how much gear they have. Now, just a few years ago, Sony would have been nowhere to be found, but with more and more pros using Sony, they are right where they need to be. Now, speaking of right where they need to be, is that?
It's a bird!
It's a camera making its way down the slope. It looks like it's a Sony A1, and it's rumbling, bumbling, tumbling its way down the hill until, well, this guy makes a textbook stop to grab the camera. Now, before we move on, can we take a second to appreciate the amazing camera work to follow that camera? Thank you. Now, I do have a couple of questions. One, whose camera was it? And two, does it still work? Now, I checked with some people at Sony who told me the camera is fine, it just needed a new LCD, and the lens was fine, it just needed a new lens hood. Now, does this mean that Sony builds the toughest cameras of all? No, not exactly. What it means is that this photographer got lucky, very lucky, because we all know that if you just bump your camera on the something else barely, it might even break.
Fragile.
This time, it rolled down the hill and didn't break.
I'm here for you.
Finally, we wrap this week up with two stories, not three, two stories about Canon. The first is from Canon Rumors, who says a source with a pretty solid track record has chimed in with claims that the next RF camera announced will be the R7, and it might come as early as March. Now, there are no specs or details on what the R7 might be, but if I had to guess, and this is just a guess, a far out there guess, it might be somewhere below the R6 and the R5. Oh, and the R3 as well. And the second Canon story is that Canon is increasing prices on some EF and RF lenses. Now here's a tip. If you're looking to buy any EF lenses new, don't buy it. Save some money and buy some used gear, because you don't need to spend money on EF lenses that are brand new. On the RF front, the 24-105 f4L and 70-200 f4 both see a $200 price jump to $1299 and $1799 respectively.
Respect.
The 100-500, the 600 f11, and 800 f11 each see a $100 jump as well to $2899, $799, and $999 respectfully.
Mad respect.
Now, I thought that must have been a mistake with the price of the 100-500, but it really is that expensive. Not to say that $2,700 wasn't that expensive, but $2899, yeah, it's an expensive lens. Now, I don't think Canon is going to be the only camera company to raise their prices in the next couple of months because everything is going up in price.
Prices are insane!
Thanks, Obama. And there you have it. That's your photo news fix this time around. To check out the last fix, go ahead and click on the screen right here. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And that's where I'm going to leave it. Jared, Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.